Think about the last thing that actually made you laugh. Not a polite smile, a real laugh. The kind you couldn't quite stop in time. Now think about what made you laugh at 5 years old. Chances are, one of those was a person falling over, or a silly face, or a word that sounded funny for no real reason at all. The other had a setup, a target, maybe even a little cruelty in the timing. You'd probably call the second one a more mature sense of humor, more you. But here's the strange part. You never actually stopped laughing at the first kind either. Most people assume a sense of humor is one thing that grows up, the same way your vocabulary grows up. You start simple and life sophisticates you. That's not what's actually happening. Humor doesn't mature, it accumulates. What makes you laugh right now isn't one system that got smarter with age. It's several separate systems, installed in your brain on completely different timelines. And every one of them is still switched on, right now, waiting for the right input. At least 3 of them, maybe 4, each with its own birthday. Each built to catch a completely different kind of joke. And in the same 10 minutes of scrolling your phone, there's a good chance you fire all of them without ever noticing the handoff between one and the next. Start with the oldest one, because it's the one you'll be quickest to deny still using. The earliest kind of laughter has nothing to do with jokes at all. Long before an infant understands language or logic or what a joke even is, they laugh at one very specific pattern. Something expected disappears, then comes back safely. It's why peekaboo works on almost every baby on the planet. Developmental psychologist Paul McGhee spent years mapping how humor changes across childhood, and his earliest stage isn't really about comedy at all, it's about safety. A small break in the pattern of the world, resolved immediately with someone trustworthy on the other side of it. That's also why a pratfall still works on you at 30 the same way it worked on you at 2. No wordplay required, no setup, no understanding of intent, just something broke the expected pattern and nobody actually got hurt. It's the simplest joke your brain can process and it never gets deleted. It just gets buried on top of everything installed on top of it. So if that's the first system, why does a 4-year-old's favorite joke sound like complete nonsense to an adult? Because the second system hasn't come online yet. Somewhere around the age a child starts school, a new kind of funny appears, and it depends on something the first one never needed: language. This is the age of the knock-knock joke, the riddle nobody older finds funny, the pun repeated 4 times in a row because saying it again somehow makes it funnier. McGee's later stages describe this shift closely. Children stop being satisfied by a broken pattern alone. They start needing to resolve it. A joke has to almost make sense, then not quite, then click. That's a genuine cognitive leap. It means holding 2 meanings of the same word in your head at once, noticing they collide, and enjoying the collision on purpose. This is also, not by coincidence, the exact age where kids find almost everything hilarious, and the adults around them find almost none of it funny. You didn't lose your sense of humor between 6 and 30. You just moved past the point where the mechanics of a pun feel like a magic trick instead of a formality. But something bigger than wordplay is still missing from a 6-year-old's humor. Hold that thought, because before it can switch on, something else has to finish building first: the ability to know that another person's mind doesn't match your own. Psychologists call this theory of mind. The moment a child realizes someone else can believe something untrue or say something they don't actually mean. It's a real, measurable milestone, and it doesn't arrive all at once. A basic version shows up somewhere around age 4 or 5, but the advanced version, the part that lets you catch sarcasm, keeps sharpening for years afterward. Researchers who study how children interpret sarcasm have found that even 9 and 10-year-olds regularly miss it, taking a dry, ironic line completely at face value. Full fluency with that kind of humor doesn't really settle in until adolescence. This is the system most people quietly credit for their entire sense of humor: dry wit, deadpan delivery, a joke that only lands if you catch the gap between what was said and what was meant. It feels like the grown-up one, the one that finally arrived. In a sense, it is the newest of the 3 you've met so far. But there's a 4th system, and for most people, it doesn't show up until much later than they'd expect. It's the one that quietly redefines what a mature sense of humor even means. And it usually needs something to happen to you first, something none of the other 3 systems were ever built to handle. Somewhere later, often not until real difficulty has actually happened to you, a different kind of funny starts to land. The joke about the thing that should be unbearable. Gallows humor. the dark comment at exactly the wrong moment that somehow, briefly, makes the room easier to breathe in. This isn't cruelty, and it isn't the absence of feeling. Researchers studying dark humor have proposed, in work that remains actively debated, a link between appreciating the darkest jokes and scoring higher on measures of verbal and cognitive processing. The theory is that a joke about tragedy demands you hold the horror and the punchline in your head at the same time, without flinching away from either one. This is a system that almost never shows up in children, rarely shows up in your 20s, and tends to deepen the more of life you've actually survived. It isn't proof you've gone numb, it might be closer to the opposite. Proof you can look directly at something painful and still find the seam where it's absurd. 4 systems, 4 different install dates. Not one of them ever got uninstalled to make room for the next. That's the part the growing up story gets backwards. A sense of humor isn't the staircase where you leave each step behind you, it's addition. The toddler system that just wants a broken pattern safely restored. The wordplay system that needs 2 meanings to collide. The sarcasm system that needs to know what you don't really mean. The dark absurdist system that needs enough real life behind it to find the joke inside the unbearable. All 4, running at once, inside the same adult brain, each one waiting for whichever kind of input shows up first. Which is exactly why a single scroll through your phone can make you laugh at someone falling into a pool, seconds after a pun in the comments, seconds after a caption that only works because it means the opposite of what it says. You're not being inconsistent, you're just cycling through every system you've ever built in about 90 seconds. So why build 4 separate systems just to make air come out of your lungs in short bursts? Evolutionary psychologists, including Robin Dunbar, have pointed to laughter's oldest and strangest job, and it isn't really about jokes at all. It's a bonding signal. Long before language existed, primates built and maintained social bonds through physical grooming, picking through each other's fur for hours at a time, one relationship at a time. Dunbar has argued that laughter may have evolved as a kind of grooming substitute, a way to bond with an entire group at once instead of one individual, without a single hand ever touching a single back. Shared laughter still does exactly that today. It's difficult to laugh in genuine sync with someone and still feel like a stranger to them 5 minutes later. Which means every time you send a meme instead of writing a paragraph, or a group chat spirals into the same joke for the 10th time in one day, you're doing something far older than the phone in your hand. You're grooming without touching anyone. 4 different circuits built across your entire life, all still pointed at the same original job, proving to the people around you that you're safe enough to laugh with. So go back to that laugh from a few minutes ago, and the one from when you were 5. They were never one sense of humor slowly getting sharper. They were separate systems, arriving on their own schedules, and none of them was ever asked to leave once the next one moved in. The toddler in you still flinches and laughs at the pratfall. The 6-year-old still lights up when a pun lands exactly right. The teenager is still in there somewhere, testing whether you catch what wasn't said out loud. And somewhere underneath all 3 is a system that might not have finished building yet, waiting for the exact kind of difficult, absurd moment that will finally teach you what to laugh at next.